Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Lowdown on Lowcode. Lowdown on Lowcode is brought to you by Analysis.tech. Thank you, as always, so much for joining. We really appreciate your support here. I'm one of your co-hosts for today, Rob Koplowitz, and I'm here with my other co-host, John Rymer. How are you, John?
Very good, Rob. Happy to be here, and very excited about today's episode. Today, guys, we have with us Ian Barkin. Ian has a long history. He's currently a founding partner at 2BVentures, and he is also the co-author with Thomas Davenport of a really good book and a really important book about citizen development. And that's how I, quote unquote, met Ian. I heard about his book and I bought it and I read it, and there's a lot of good stuff in it. There's a lot of good advice in it. Ian, I thank you for getting together with Tom Davenport and writing this, because, there aren't a lot of books out there about citizen development. And so it's a really important contribution.
Oh, I'm glad to hear
thank
you were the one who bought the book. That's great. Thank you. It was you.
It's well worth it. It's well worth it. So, Ian, the way we start our conversations is, how did you arrive at the point you're at? And I'm particularly interested in, how did you determine that it was a good idea to write a book? That's so much work.
Well, you're assuming I still think it's a good idea, but you were right. It is a lot of work. So I guess the answer lies in sort of the last 15 years, which involves, I was in outsourcing. I was a guy who solved your problems with arbitrage, with lower cost people around the globe who were talented and capable and energized. And about 12 years ago, that was the space in which robotic process automation started to really take root, because you didn't outsource the really critical strategic. You outsourced that which was routine, role-based, and mundane. That is exactly the description of what RPA was built to do. And so we started to do that. And then we faced this narrative that this stuff is so easy, a business analyst can do it, which is not true, but a great sales pitch and marketing message. And then over time, they being sort of the vendors, I suppose, started to chip away at the elements that were involved in delivering and implementing and managing RPA. And some of that was around finding where to put it. And that became the process intelligence, task mining, process mining space, where they said, you don't need a consultant anymore. This will just watch what all your people do and tell you put robots there. And then ultimately the advancement from just hardcore line-by-line coding into more of a visual low-code and no-code environment, that started to influence the space. And so I found that sort of direction of travel fascinating, all the while knowing that it still was heavily a marketing narrative. It was low-er code and no-ish code, but there was still code. And so if you didn't understand how to open up and hook things together with Python in the back end somewhere, or know what a JSON file was, or know any number of other things, let alone know about change control and documentation and the rigor of complying with IT's governance rules, if you didn't know that stuff, then you were going to run afoul of all of it. So that was my background. And then stuff just got easier and easier, which opened the aperture to more and more people who could actually contribute their ideas into and turn them into three different things that we cover in the book, but turn them into integrations, gluing systems to one another, applications, so more of a function, and data science, and using data and creating models more easily than was ever possible to do before. So that was that. And then the chance to do anything with Thomas Davenport was pretty darn cool. So I jumped at the chance.
Yeah. By the way, I realized that in my haste to get into the conversation, I neglected to mention the title of the book. It is called All Hands on Tech, the AI-powered citizen revolution. There you have it. There you have it. Thank you, Ian. Rob, over to you.
So, Ian, John and I have been on this for, about a decade. And I think the core of what we think is so powerful here is the idea that business people are empowered to help drive your business forward. And that's where your innovations come from. Obviously, in your book, we feel we have found a kindred spirit. But there is still some resistance to this, right? There is still sort of, there's multiple camps on this. Mm-hmm. What's your most compelling argument to the CIO, to the organization, to say you really need to go down the path of empowering your business people?
Yeah. So in the CIO, CTOs, anyone technical, when you bring up, just say the word citizen development, and they will injure themselves rolling their eyes as hard as they do often, because they've faced the technical debt and the gray IT and all of the other issues that it has caused in the past. In the book, we have a framework, a 4G framework, and we can get to the last three of them. But the first G we chose was Genesis. And ultimately, the reason we chose that is because we wanted to make the point that if you think you have any control over your domain experts, your business people actually using software to create integrations, applications, data models, if you think that you're the one initiating this idea, you are badly mistaken. This is already happening in every nook and cranny of your enterprise. Yeah. So your choice is try to shut it down, which is like trying to stop weeds from growing in concrete. It's just that is impossible. Or embrace it and enable it, because, to your point, nobody understands the needs of the end customer better than business. And the end customer could be the employee who is a customer to the HR department, or your upstream OEM who is a customer to your shipping and logistics department, or, you name it. There's customers of every process. Nobody understands the needs and the scope and the customer's sort of experience better than those people in the business. Nobody. So why not tap into their domain expertise?
Brilliantly put. Thank you, Ian. John?
So one of the things that I really liked about the book, Ian, as Rob said, he and I have been at this for a long time, and you're reading your book, it made me realize that we had a blind spot, and we're about application development. And there's a whole other side of the world that you and Tom Davenport bring out in the book about data analysis, citizen data scientists. That that's a whole part of the world that your book opened my eyes to a much better understanding. I wonder if you could help the audience understand, because I think a lot of our listeners are deep into application development. What do they need to know about these citizen data scientists, about that role that's really different? And
yeah, it was interesting because Tom and I both brought different perspectives to the act of doing the research and writing this book, because my background had been more in the integration development, the RPA space of, I described it as gaps, apps, and maps. And so RPA was filling gaps between systems. Then the application development, citizen developers were developing apps, and then maps was speaking to using data and turning it into information. And that was very much Tom's background. But what we also found was, every one of these subspecialties was the auspice of some PhD geek group that declared that they and they alone should be doing this. And so whether it's app building, an IT department, or even in the integrations, on the data science side, it was the PhD data scientists who would geek around and be certain that they played an important role in the enterprise. And I learned too, there's class system within them, because there's sort of just like the data collection and data cleaning, and then there's data prediction and modeling, and those guys don't talk to each other too much. ultimately, at the end of the day, we found great examples, yet again, of domain experts that just thought, hey, I've got an idea. I want to sort of test that theory, but I kind of don't know where to start. And so many of them would do a free download of a particular data science tool and just start to tinker and play. And as a result, I mean, we've got examples in the book of people saving tens of millions, hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars for their parent enterprise just because, they had an idea and they were able to collect, clean, organize, and model the data that informed how you order goods, how you stock them on shelves, how you integrate with or interact with your end customers. And that democratizing that is massively valuable.
Yep. Rob?
So, Ian, you touched on this a little bit. I want to dig in a little bit further. It's not necessarily a world in which everybody is a citizen developer and building applications, but what you're telling us is that the business is important in informing how we should run our business, informing how automation should play out within our business. We actually had an earlier podcast where we interviewed a young woman by the name of Sarah Koplowitz. Yeah, I know, Nepo baby, whatever. But anyway, she was doing really interesting things in automating marketing processes across multiple systems and making things better. And she was working with IT. She was doing a little bit of the design, but a lot of the coding was being done by IT. That's another model. Walk us through how an organization should think about all the different ways that the business can contribute to this effort.
Absolutely. Even if they don't build.
Even if they don't build.
Well, and that's, we had a taxonomy of citizen types that was quite a bit more complex when we started the research, and we simplified it down ultimately. But one of the roles, or actually I'll start with a discussion. So we had a discussion with an individual who was spearheading a citizen development program within his enterprise. And as part of it, you would go through training. And so they would teach you, how to use these simple tools, and maybe not so simple. But it was also the act of identifying where candidate processes existed, where you could improve on them and ultimately digitize them. And then here's how you use a tool. And he said that people would drop out at that point. They would sort of fail this class. And he said that they were his dropouts. He maintained a close relationship with, because they were, in many cases, even more valuable because they became citizen scouts. Because the lens that you've just provided them, where they go, okay, I understand. It's like in the old Six Sigma days where like, okay, I get DMAIC. Now I see opportunities and inefficiency everywhere. And so they don't have to build. They at least have to identify, and they tend to. Once people have learned sort of the art of the possible and the general gist of this, everywhere they look, everything they do on a day-to-day basis, they just realize this feels like it could be done better. And then, as you said, then the question is, do they have the creativity to turn that into a prototype or a description of what that better might look like? And then partner up with people who actually can use the tools to digitize that scope of work.
Can we use the term citizen scout if we attribute? Because it's
you absolutely can.
It's fabulous.
Well, and again, it's just because, and we touched on this in the book, because people would ask, what are the skills that a citizen needs? And so we started writing a section about skills that talked about data literacy and digital literacy and an understanding of process design. And then we realized, because of the scout concept, that maybe not everyone needs that. But what we also realized is just having the skills wasn't often enough, because many of these citizens, the successful ones we identified and interviewed, had succeeded in the face of enterprise adversity, right? They had digitized things against the will of somebody somewhere up above them. IT didn't want them doing it, or their boss didn't want them. And so we added an element of personality trait and mindset to what makes a citizen as well, which spoke of things like grit and perseverance and an entrepreneurial spirit, because without those, you can have all the skills in the world, but if you're not tenacious, then you just sit there and you do your job, because why why make it hard for yourself?
Yeah. Thanks, Ian. John, take us to break.
There is a great there is one great example that I'm recalling, Ian, in the book, of someone who persevered, and boy, did they end up creating a lot of value. Okay, we're going to take a brief commercial break here, folks. Again, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. Join us. We're here just about every week, bringing you insights and stories, informing low code journeys in the enterprise. We're brought to you by analysis.tech. Please visit us at analysis.tech. Real simple. To see our research and to engage with myself, Rob, and our other colleagues. And again, thanks for listening. And if you like us, and tell your friends. Okay.
Okay, Ian. So enough of the friendly banter. I think there's
Too easy.
So you're an RPA guy and I'm a DPA guy. And the book is very, heavily focused on sort of the power of RPA. Let us give us a sense of why you focused on RPA and where you see RPA kind of fitting into the continuum with other types of automation tools.
Yeah. So I was in the right place at the right time. It's as complex and as sophisticated as that. But again, I was a BPO guy, solving enterprise problems with arbitrage, low-cost people. And but I did have the ability to be in the innovation team and the transformation team and whatever was new and exciting. And it just so happened in 2013, what's new and exciting was robotic process automation. And so I was in the right place at the right time at a large BPO where we had a scope of work that we could start to tinker and test RPA on. And it worked. And we gained recognition for having done that in the industry. And so I left my day job and with a few co-founders started an RPA consultancy that over the course in 2014, that over the course of 4 years grew to 300 professionals around the planet. And we ultimately sold it in 2018. And along that journey, I had the privilege of working with really energized, exciting, interesting people solving big problems for large enterprises using that particular tool set. And so that's
great. Thanks, Ian. John?
Got my RPA experience.
So we have reached the point in the conversation, Ian, where we need to bring up AI. And
I've heard of it.
You've heard of that? Yeah.
Yes.
And we should add that Tom Davenport's been at AI for decades.
Yes.
I mean, he's really got it. He brings a deep background to the project. So one of the big questions about AI, there's a lot of excitement about it. One of the big questions is, how will AI change the nature of business applications as we know them today? We those of us involved in tech know about the major structures. You have things like software as a service, and you have personal productivity tools and like that. And it looks like the combination of AI technology, generative AI technology, and business people getting deeply involved in delivering solutions is really going to change things. And I wonder if you could talk about the conclusions you've reached about that.
Yeah. Man, I wish I knew. It's been interesting because it's changing so absurdly quickly right now that it creates a cacophony of noise and confusion.
Indeed.
And so the simplest, most hyperbolic statements are that, software as a service is dead and software is dead. And all it was an interface for you to interact with your data to create outcomes, and you don't need it in the middle anymore. Or you can gin up your own ERPs in seconds using all these AI code generators now. So you won't need most of the tools. So they should all just fall apart on the stock market. Technically, maybe some of that is a reasonable set of statements to make, but I've spent my 25-year long career working in enterprises, enterprises can't figure out what to have for lunch in short of 6.5 months. So I just don't think that the substrate is as fluid as it would need to be for any of that to really make a big difference. Yes, everything has to be AI first. Yes, using Gen AI in some way to help you interact with your data, your emails, your files is valuable. One risk we run is that we're not doing enough training of the human staff to know that Gen AI is fallible. So if I just wrote accept that I can now interrogate a PDF contract by asking questions to my Gen AI, and I don't know that it will diligently answer me, but not necessarily correctly based on the information it could barely read in the PDF, that's dangerous. So I think we'll come back from the precipice of everything is going to be AIified away. And the other trend that has been fascinating is this agentic concept of everything as an AI agent. And to the best of my understanding right now, it kind of this most exciting and diverse little erector set where you can build processes with thousands of tiny specialist sort of elements that do tasks. But again, anytime anything has that many parts, it's just that many ways that it can break. Yeah. And so I think the science projects are gaining a lot of attention right now, but for it to be enterprise grade and reliable, that's going to take a whole new sort of platform or way of thinking about it, or solutions delivery partner that we work with to capitalize on those tools.
Yeah, that's well said. Rob?
So, Ian, I guess, we have this sort of working hypothesis at analysis.tech that says, ultimately we will get to a world where agents are far more a part of the enterprise fabric. They will participate far more deeply in enterprise processes. I tend to agree with you. SaaS is going away is hyperbolic. By the way, mainframes are going away too. They're going to be replaced by client server, and
totally, yeah. So, any decade now, they'll be gone.
Still waiting. Mm-hmm. But we are really firmly of the belief that these agents will do increasingly interesting things, especially at a task-based level. That they will potentially allow reimagining of how parts or large parts of processes take place. But we also think there's this citizen angle to it, right? That the business is going to best understand where and how to apply these things with a strong governance model that says, how do these things eventually get promoted up into enterprise grade applications. So this weird world where we're interacting again with sort of the business, testing out the art of the possible, IT and the architecture behind these things increasingly supporting that type of interaction. Where should the business be thinking about this? How should we be thinking about getting our business users involved in this groundswell that's happening?
Right. Well, I think what's interesting is our vocabularies are converging. And by that, I mean, business people are, and this is sort of an inflection point we talk about in the book of humans are becoming more technical and technology is becoming more human. And so that results in, one of the people we interviewed had said that in meetings now, it's hard to know who's business and who's IT because everyone seems to be a whole lot closer than 20 years ago in my career where you were using all sorts of models to try to get the two teams to not fight with each other and completely disagree. And so hopefully the answer to your question is this is easier than ever before because there's more alignment. But to your point too, I think you have to realize an idea is good because it creates some form of value to the enterprise. And so just because you can use these technologies to do technology is not the measure of success. It is, have you made a better seamless experience for whomever that customer is? And frankly, a lot of customer experiences suck. right? I mean, just as a B2C customer to most enterprises, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to see those finally not suck so much. And I think that's at the hands of business finally saying, as you said, we kind of understand the building blocks of what we have available to us now, and let's at least prototype a future state that creates a better outcome for the customer of the process and for us as an enterprise overall.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. John?
Ian, thank you so much for joining us today. I've been wanting to talk with you for some time, and it's great to finally get that opportunity. I hope that your words here, as well as your book, inspire a lot of folks who, as you pointed out, they would make great scouts to figure out what could be better. What could be better? I don't necessarily know how to make it better, but I know I can help at least identify how could this be better, and somebody else maybe can come in and actually do the technical work. I hope there's a lot of people like that out there, right? And I hope you inspire them.
Oh, I think so. And again, I think the evolution of the comment box, where you just sort of put a card in and didn't know where it went, to the hackathon model, or to Kaizen and Lean Six Sigma programs, to hackathons, to really actually being able to prototype future states and ideas and know that it can be turned into something valuable.
Yeah.
I think it's inherent in leadership to understand that this is something that should be encouraged and incentivized, so that you don't just ask people for their ideas and pat them on their back and go the other way.
Yeah.
And if you do that right, then you do get an energy within enterprises.
Yeah. Amen. Folks, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Again, this is Lowdown on Low Code. Like us if you like us. Tell your friends. We're here to help the community. Again, strongly recommend Ian and Tom Davenport's book, All Hands on Tech: The AI-Powered Citizen Revolution. I read it. It's got a lot of great evidence in it of how citizen development can really advance a digital strategy, and there's some really practical advice throughout the book about how to advance your own journey. So heartily recommend it. And Ian, thanks again for contributing it to the literature, because boy, we need a lot more discussion about this going forward. So with that, have a good day, everyone. And again, thanks for joining.